So today we've heard a lot about other companies' requirements, a lot about how an open ecosystem, would be great here, having APIs, common frameworks, how all this is needed from a lot of different point of views. So we're going to talk about the next steps in building this community and where we are today, and then finish up with how you guys can join us.
Sure, there we go. Whoop.
So wanted to start with the history a little bit and try to explain a little bit about some of the naming that, has been maybe slightly confusing as the day has went on because we started at two different points. So I'm just going to start with the story of how this started for me. I actually worked at IBM at the time, and I worked closely with our partner F5. And we started talking a bit about what was going on with DPUs and IPUs and how we really thought that there needed to be an open ecosystem and some common APIs and things built around this. I ended up actually moving over to the Red Hat side of the fence, since IBM owns Red Hat, and we really felt like Red Hat was the right place to lead this. When I started talking about this to Red Hat, they were also thinking similar things already on their side and really saw Red Hat as being able to take a role here. So F5, IBM, and Red Hat started a project. We got some other companies to contribute, and we needed a name. Well, we struggled a lot with a name.
We did. We spent a long time trying to figure out we spent too much time trying to figure out what we should call this to begin with. And we got to a point where we finally said, what about a name, a place, just a place that we could do it? And you said, Chris?
Well, somebody asked me where I lived, and I said Diamond Bluff, and they said, that's your name. I live in Diamond Bluff, Wisconsin, and we just needed a name to get started with, right? It's supposed to be a code name, and that's what it is. So that's where the name Diamond Bluff came from. And you can kind of see in the screenshot of our project on the left, a picture of a bluff. That's actually my backyard. So literally a bluff in my backyard. But that's where we started. And Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about where Intel started?
Yeah, and actually, since you kind of dovetailed your own job change into it, I might do the same as well, right? So I actually started just working at Intel at the end of November last year. And I think it was probably just maybe less than a month before I started that Intel launched IPDK, so I knew about that. I knew that was launched, and then after I joined, I don't know, Chris, if you remember this, but literally the first day that I joined, I dialed into my first Diamond Bluff call, and I was literally driving through Wisconsin to Madison to pick up a car that had died in Madison, Wisconsin the previous week on the way back. So anyways, fun inequities beside the point there. But yeah, so essentially IPDK came about, and my understanding is, when Intel and Red Hat had gotten together to talk about things, they were kind of similar to that Spider-Man meme of pointing at each other going, wait a sec, you're doing this too, we're doing this, everyone's doing this. F5 was in there, maybe the third spider person pointing around. And so, so they decided, well, let's try to let's see what we can do together, right? So we've spent the last, I would say, all of December since then, working on ultimately what's led up to this event and what ultimately will happen after this event in terms of building this new community around IPUs and DPUs.
Yeah, so I think, the story is there, we're coming together and forming a new broad community, right? And that, broad community is what we've been kind of referring to, at least as a placeholder name, as OPI. That is sort of what we're targeting, right? But the objective of this community, is to have a project, that drives, and fosters community-driven standards, although standards is a little bit of a heavy word, but based open ecosystem. We want to incorporate next generation architectures, APIs, frameworks, all based around, this DPU and IPU technology. So Paul, do you want to talk about today where we're at?
Today where we're at is we've got several different working groups within the project. And so IPDK is one of those. We've got an orientation group. Chris leads that, teaches new folks how to join the project, all that good stuff, what's happened in the past, where we need help. We have a governance group that is on the next slide. We'll talk about where that's headed. So looking at joining a foundation, that sort of stuff. Today, we are self-governed. We're just a bunch of us. We've put up a DCO so that we can start contributing together. That was one of the sticky points at the beginning of all this was, okay, F5 has an NDA with Red Hat, and we've got one with Intel, and we've got one with IBM. How do we get everybody in the same room and start talking to one another without feeling like we've got to get the lawyers on every single call? And so we decided that the best way to do that was to become self-governed, create a GitHub project, and that way we could all contribute to that project and join that, go along that path. As Chris said, we have a code name for the project that's been Diamond Bluff and IPDK. They've kind of come together, and now we're landing, we think, on the name Open Programmable Infrastructure Project. That's where we are today. Next slide. And where we're going for tomorrow is that we're looking at joining a foundation. So our governance group and the core group at large has been looking at this issue for about since December. You know, what do we do? Is there an organization that we join? We're looking most closely right now at the Linux Foundation. They've begun to help us start putting together some governance around this. There's always input from folks that we can join. And what, you know, so we've got this, call it an umbrella project, OPI project, and we're merging the other things that we've been doing separately together under it. And we'll be bringing other open source contributions and other companies that want to contribute and bring their stuff into the Open Programmable Infrastructure Project. And one of the things we're looking to do is add contributors and contributions to this. We need to start creating those API frameworks. We need to start creating documentation around how we expect these devices to be used.
Yeah, so for that, you know, we've already kicked off a couple of subgroups, you know, one that's focused on like more APIs and things like that, and frameworks, and one that's focused on, you know, life cycle management and provisioning. Those groups are just getting started and defining sort of what they think they will cover. But like we've heard a lot of different point of views from different companies and stuff that I think could contribute highly to where that goes. So now would be the time, you know, to really get in at the starting levels of those conversations if you guys want to help drive where that's going and help contribute.
Real quick, Chris, in the chat, there was a question about, is OPI a fork of IPDK and plus best practices? How does that work? Really, we all realized, Intel and F5, IBM, Red Hat, and others, that we were going down similar parallel paths, and we determined that why don't we work together instead of creating competing standards? So we're bringing all of this together in one project, one umbrella project that will have different sub-project headings within it. IPDK will be one of those sub-projects, one of the pieces of the entire puzzle. It's the contribution. At the very beginning, you may have heard Nick McEwen talk about the puzzle pieces. We've all got our puzzle pieces. IPDK is the Intel puzzle piece that they're bringing to the party.
And how we're going to put that together and how the glue works and the broader project. I mean, that's still, you know, work in progress, right?
It is, so very much so.
Yeah. I like to think of OPI as kind of being the glue of where we're going to take a bunch of things and give a reference of how you'd put them together, you know, possibly test different components together, you know, but it's still very much a work in progress. So we don't have a lot of clear, exact answers to some of the questions because we wanted to have this event and invite others to come bring their point of view in before we got to predetermined answers, right? So we wanted to invite you all to come and join us and help us determine the answers to these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that if people want to join, for sure. I think, Paul, you mentioned this, but Chris, runs that group where people can figure out how to join and how to get engaged with the various other subgroups and whatever other weekly meetings they want to do at this point, and how they want to contribute. So I think we should reiterate that again, that there is Chris and some other folks have developed a nice way to kind of get involved. So I think people should take advantage of that if they're interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first step on this slide, I have the website to the opiproject.org. If you go to that website currently, what you're going to get is a Google form that you fill out with your contact information, and you can request, to join one of our upcoming orientation sessions, or, I can send you a recording of an orientation session. Or if you're ready, if you are already convinced and you want to join the project, then you can select that as well. And we can get you integrated into our meetings and give you access so you can join subgroups. So that's the first step, go there. But if you still want to dig a little bit into the different where we're at, there's a lot of information out on the IPDK.io website. They have a GitHub with where they're at and some of their contributions. And there's also stuff out on the Diamond Bluff GitHub with some of the goals and things that Diamond Bluff has worked on. Over the course of the next week or two, you will see us starting to really bring things together under the OPI umbrella and try to come to more converged place to go for things. But this is where we're at right now.
Yep.
So now I can't see the chat. So are there other questions out there?
We don't have any other, looks like, unanswered questions yet. We've got other folks chiming in, helping us define what it is between OPI, IPDK, Diamond Bluff in the chat, and that's been helpful. And I put the opiproject.org link in the chat as well. So,
and I think that both project websites also have Slack channels linked on their project websites. Right now they're separate, but you can join either one of those Slack channels to have more direct conversations with us, ask questions and stuff as well.
Yep.
So thank you.